spreading like wildfire. A kind of caterpillar called the fall armyworm is invading and destroying maize in large parts of southern Africa. Originally from the American continent, they're hard to control and are resistant to pesticides.
It is a challenge. Firstly, it's new. And number two, as I said, the challenge of its velocity is how it spreads so fast. Number three, its resistance to the normal chemicals that we use with stock borer and other pests that we normally deal with.
Pesticides are showing their limitations, and more consumers and farmers are turning their backs on them. But what are pesticides? There are three broad categories: herbicides that kill weeds, fungicides that kill mushrooms, and insecticides that repel bugs and critters. Pesticides are everywhere, in our food, in our clothes, and in our furniture. They're easy to use and efficient for farmers, and they've been credited with preventing famines and epidemics. But independent researchers say they could be dangerous for our planet and our health by causing cancer, modifying our genes, or impacting fertility. So the question is, can we get rid of them altogether, or at least use less? Well, these French scientists say yes. Over a period of 3 years, they compared around 1,000 farms that use fewer pesticides with farms that use average levels of pesticides. And this is what they found.
It is possible to reduce pesticide use in most situations of France without damaging profitability and productivity, but it will not be easy.
The study's authors say French farmers could lower pesticide use by around 30% and not even notice. France is the fourth largest pesticide user in the world after the US, Brazil, and Japan. French farmers spray 2 kilos of it a second. Beets get 16 to 18 treatments a year, and apples get 36. That's a lot. And the French government has made it a goal to lower its dependence by half by 2025. But that might be even harder than it sounds. French farmers used 10% more pesticides in 2014 than they did the year before. Paradoxically, France is also one of the biggest players on the opposite side of the spectrum, organic farming, with no fertilizers or pesticides. It's the country's most dynamic sector. France is ranked third globally with more than 7 billion euros in revenue. In 15 years, the number of organic farms around the world has multiplied by 9, drawing in 2 million workers, though it still makes up just 1% of agriculture as a whole. So, can organic farming feed the planet? It's a numbers game, and each side has its talking points. Though it's generally admitted that yes, organic farming has lower yields than traditional agriculture, 8 to 12%, in fact, depending on who you ask. Still, for some creative thinkers, it's not enough to go organic. Farming as a whole has to be reimagined.
By doing ecological agriculture, returning organic matter to the soil, producing healthier food, producing more livelihoods, protecting our small farmers, protecting biodiversity, we have everything to gain.
It's called agroecology, taking ecosystems as a whole and preserving their resources. We asked an early adopter how his farm works and what his harvest looks like.
L'agroécologie, c'est le fait de produire
Agroecology is producing with nature, with the forces of life, and therefore skipping chemical products. It's relying on plant associations and real biodiversity that allows the ecosystem to balance out, to be more resilient, and in the end, more fertile.
Résilient et d'être au final plus fertile. Donc on a créé une ferme d'1,5 hectare.
We created a 1.5 hectare farm, betting we could create 3 jobs, that's 6 times as many per unit of land treated with chemicals.
Le maraîchage chimique.
This is our 3rd season. It's not easy, but we're on the right track.
Pas simple, mais on est quand même sur la bonne
We're showing we
voie.
can produce with nature, and even grow more vegetables per square metre than if we were using big tractors and chemicals.
L'effort de vie permet de, par unité de surface, par mètre carré de produits de
Per unit, we are much more productive,
avec des gros tracteurs et avec
but it's true that per unit of time, if you look at productivity by the hour,
ce qui est sûr, c'est que par
if you have someone who's weeding by hand instead of using a tractor,
horaire,
it's hard to be competitive.
quelqu'un qui va désherber à la main plutôt que désherber avec un tracteur, c'est difficile d'être compétitif. Sur notre ferme,
On our farm, we mix plants and trees. Trees are going to dig deep into the soil with their roots to access nutrients that are too deep for those plants with yearly roots. They bring those nutrients up for the other plants, and they provide shade when it's hot out in the summertime. And the dead leaves in winter cover the soil and create organic matter. 90% of farmers in the world don't have tractors, they work without pesticides. Let's be clear, the French or Western agricultural model is not representative of what happens around the planet.
N'est pas représentatif du modèle mondial. La seule chose, c'est que
The only thing is that with our form of agriculture, we mostly feed livestock and fill our car tanks.
la nature est bien plus fertile.
Nature is much more fertile than we are with our chemicals and technology.
Olivier de Schutter, le rapporteur de la FAO,
Olivier de Schutter of the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization ends the report by saying agroecology is not one solution,
l'agroécologie n'est pas une,
it's the only solution.
c'est la seule.
Pesticides and monocultures are out, diversifying plants and working with nature are in. Still, given the size and scope of conventional farming, it's going to take a lot of adjusting to adapt to these new methods.